In the Dictionary of Power Dynamics, dark psychology is defined as the use of psychological principles in ways that harm the target. There is a lot of interest in dark psychology around the web, but there is not much good information. Well, today we'll check out 10 facts about dark psychology. But before starting the video, please subscribe to the channel and click on the notification icon so you'll get notified when we upload the next video. 10. Dark psychology is not hypnosis. Hypnosis is powerful. A series of well-placed commands embedded within a distracting word salad of nonsense can bewilder people enough to give you some control over them. Once they disengage their critical thinking, you can then quickly escalate their compliance until you can successfully ask them to hand over their wallets. Or let you go instead of giving you a ticket if they are cops. The cop was friendly enough that allowed the driver to dominate the frame at will. 9. Dark psychology is not NLP and undercover seduction triggers. Again, there is some truth here. Well-designed stimuli, including auditory patterns, can change people's moods and induce trance-like states that can help seduction and/or increase its feelings. I did it once and I talk about it here on how to set up your room for seduction. However, NLP or secret combinations of words have been overhyped by unscrupulous snake oil salesmen. Have you ever seen those advertisements of "send her these 3 texts and she'll be all over you"? Total BS. In truth, she has to like you and trust you before you can induce any turnaround or any trance-like states. And to change her mind with words, you also need to have some value in her eyes. Otherwise, the more you speak and chase, the more she will dislike you. Overall, you are better off working on more basic stuff than focusing on the exact words. 8. Dark psychology does not turn anyone into a cult sect follower. Again, some truth. Cults and sects are real. And cult leaders do deploy solid psychological principles to ensnare people, plus they are often very good with power dynamics. It's a myth though that anyone could be recruited into a sect and become a blind follower. Remember this general truth about manipulation. Manipulators' biggest skill is always in picking the targets who are easiest to manipulate. That's not to say that you should have too much confidence in yourself. After all, the best way to put yourself in danger is to believe you are unassailable. But it does mean that the power of dark psychology and cults is also limited by the target's own power, which includes his knowledge of power dynamics and his knowledge of manipulation principles. When you read of cult leaders who had their members do this or that crazy and dangerous acts including self-harm, never forget this. Most of those people were not the mentally strongest and most fiercely independent people to begin with. And if you are reading here and enjoying the power moves content, chances are very low that you'd end up in a sect. Also, dark psychology is not brainwashing. Brainwashing requires total control over someone. Do not work on everyone. Possibly only works on a minority of people, takes a long time, and its effects tend to dissipate with time. World control by a small subset of people, the idea that government, CIA, Jews, or any specific small group of people can control what everyone thinks and does thanks to the power of propaganda, is a failure of appreciating the complexity of our world. 7. Dark psychology for social manipulation. Dark psychology in social settings consists of strategies and techniques to manipulate people to do what's good for the dark psychologist, but harmful for the victims. Robert Greene, author of The 48 Laws of Power, says that persuasion is manipulation. I disagree. I think that not only we can differentiate between the psychology of persuasion and the psychology of manipulation, but that we must differentiate between the two. The difference between persuasion and manipulation is that persuasion does not necessarily harm the target of persuasion, or, at least, the persuader is not out to willingly harm the target of his persuasion. Manipulation instead entails a loss for the victim of manipulation. That loss can be financial, material, emotional, or lost in his personal power or freedom. In short, persuasion does not harm people, while manipulation does. At times that line can be up to interpretation and framing, and persuasion and manipulation can also overlap. For example, the Nike marketing department might say that they are doing a good thing by making the customers happy with a great product. Someone else might say that Nike is manipulating people to overpay for pieces of poor quality plastics. The same can be said for McDonald's marketing department, or for a pastry shop. But the line between persuasion and manipulation is not infinitely elastic, and many times it's pretty easy to differentiate between persuasion and manipulation. 6. Dark psychology in dating. Dark psychology in dating applies psychological principles to meet one's own sexual strategies at the detriment of the dating partner. Dating between men and women presents common objectives as well as some diverging interests. For example, men gain from having sex ASAP, women lose. Men gain from sex without commitment, women lose. Women gain from lots of investment before sex, men lose. Women gain when men in their lives dote on them, men lose. Of course there are exceptions, and there are plenty of ways to smoothen out the divergences, with collaborative frames, for example. But the above statements are still true plenty of times to make dating a fertile ground for manipulators and dark psychologists. The dark psychologist dates with complete disregard of the well-being of their dating partner, while seeking to exclusively maximize their own self-interest. 5. Dark psychology in relationships. Dark psychology in relationships applies psychological principles to gain power and control one's partner. There is less conflict in relationships than in dating, but there is still some conflict. For example, each partner can gain by keeping one nominally committed relationship with all the sexual and emotional benefits that entails, while also seeking more sex on the side. And that's why cheating exists. It can pay off. Psychological tools of female control, women naturally deploy a set of very specific, dark psychological tools to control their men. Males' techniques for mate control, men more than women gain from controlling their partner, so they deploy a set of both physical and psychological tools to guard their partners. These range from outright abuse to jealous controlling to shaming techniques to lowering her self-esteem so that she is more dependent on him. 4. Dark psychology in politics. Dark psychology in politics consists of techniques of propaganda and political debating designed to negatively frame one's opponent, influence voters, and induce citizens to abandon individualistic behaviour in favour of the collective. There are many levels of political dark psychology, and we can separate them into two major groups: during campaigns and in office. In democracies, these two phases can overlap since politicians in power are still campaigning for the next elections. But even in democracies, you can still notice a marked switch from campaign to office. Here is a quick difference. During campaigns, frame the opponent as ineffective and unworthy. Frame the current state as hopeless. Frame yourself as the man to fix the situation. In extreme situations, make up an enemy and paint yourself as the right person to destroy that enemy. 3. Dark psychology in groups. Dark psychology seeks to reduce the follower's power and independence, while increasing the leader's power and control. Have you read the Power Moves values? One of them advises readers to develop themselves before getting too deep into any group. Why do I advise so? Because most group leaders want to decrease members' power and independence while increasing their power and influence over those same group members. To make people more dependent on the group leaders will deploy several tactics of dark psychology, including make people's problems appear as bigger than they actually are, so people believe they will need the group and group leader to solve them. Ridicule, disempower, or exclude discording voices. Cult leaders seek to cut out all discordant opinions. Since that's rarely possible, group leaders frame any discordant voices as idiotic, uninformed, or manipulative. Funny, eh? So that they can inoculate their effect and keep followers loyal to the group's diktats and dogmas. Fostering group superiority over the individual. Humanist and enlightened ideals of individualism and personal freedom are a threat to group leaders. They seek instead to prioritize the group over any individual. The more people sacrifice themselves for the group, the more power they have. Dissolving members' ego with the group. The more members identify with the group, the more power the group and the group leader will have on its members. Fusing the group with the leader, the last stage of dark psychology, is for the leader to embody the group. That way, he can reach total control over its members. At that point, there is no group anymore, just the leader and its followers who are in it for the leader. 2. Dark psychology in war. Dark psychology seeks to instill terror, to mentally dominate or unsettle the enemy in a way that will handicap its fighting ability and, ideally, to make their fight and resistance seem futile. Manipulative communication during war frames the enemy as barbaric and brutal, and spreads that view as widely as possible. The armed conflict is only one aspect of war. Psychology, information, and propaganda all become crucial strategic tools to support a military campaign. 1. Dark psychology in business. Dark psychology in business manipulates employees into giving up their individual self-interest in favour of the organisation, while accepting only a small portion of their true contribution. There is no point in saddling you with more information here. There is already a large resource on this phenomenon, with plenty of examples. Do share with us in the comments below if you know more about dark psychology. Thank you for watching.